Section 6.1.RA-7, in the probability distribution to the right, the random variable x represents the number of marriages an individual age 15 years or older has been involved in. We want to compute the standard deviation of the random variable x. So, in order for us to do that, we first need to use the formula to compute the mean of the random variable x. So recall that the formula to find the mean is equal to the sum of the values of x times the probability of x. So what that means is we're going to take 0, which is a value of x in the first one. We're going to multiply by its probability, which is 0.302. And then plus, we're going to take 1 and then multiply by the probability, which is 0.558. And then plus 2 times 0.113 plus 3 times 0.019 plus 4 times 0.006 and then plus 5 times 0.002. So when we multiply that all together, we end up getting 0.875 marriages. So the mean is 0.875 marriages. And now what we want to do is we want to be able to compute the standard deviation. Now recall that the formula for the standard deviation is the following. It's going to equal the square root of the sum of the random variable squared times the probability minus the mean squared. So what we're going to do is we're going to first calculate, and let's go ahead and create our table. So we have our table here. So let me copy that. Okay, so here's our table. And then we're just going to expand this a little further. Okay, and then what we want to be able to do now is we want to be able to find x squared, and then we're going to multiply it by p of x. Okay, so for the first one, we're going to take 0 and we're going to square it, and then we're going to multiply it by its probability, which is 0.302, and that's going to give us 0. And then we're going to take the value of 1 and then we're going to square it, and then we're going to multiply it by its probability, which is 0.558. When we multiply that out, we get 0.558. Okay, and then we're going to take 2 squared, and then we're going to multiply by its probability, which is 0.113. And that's going to give us 0.452. And then we're going to take the value of 3, we're going to square it and multiply it by 0.019. And that's going to give us 0.171. And then we're going to take 4, we're going to square it and multiply it by its probability, which is 0.006. And that gives us 0.096. And then we're going to take 5 squared and then multiply that probability, which is 0.002, which gives us 0.05. So now what we want to do is we want to be able to find the sum. So the sum is taking the sum. So this is the summation of everything that we just found. So we want to find the sum of all of those. So that means if we add up all of these numbers, we get 1.327. So now what we want to do is we want to be able to subtract this from the mean in order to then find the variance. So what we want to do is, in step number 4, okay? If we look at the formula, we know that if we have the standard deviation, so the standard deviation squared is the variance. So that means if we take the mean, or the sum of those probabilities that we just found, and then we're going to subtract the mean from the first part. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this number here, which is 1.327, and then we're going to subtract the mean, which we found up here, which is 0.875. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have 1.327, and then we're subtracting 0.875, and that's 0.875, and this should be squared. And so what that equals is 0.5614, and the units would be marriages squared because we're talking about the variance. So now, if we want to find the standard deviation, well, the standard deviation is taking the square root of the variance. So we want to find the square root of the number 0.5614. And so rounding that to one decimal place, we're going to get 0.7, and that's marriages. So the standard deviation of the random variable x, in this case, that's what we get, is 0.7 marriages.